grand hall of the Galactic Council hummed with the low-frequency vibrations of 100 different species conversing in their native tongues. The crystalline spires of the orbiting chamber refracted light from Xanthoprime's 3 suns, casting prismatic patterns across the floating anti-grav pods, where delegates perched, lounged, or hovered according to their biology. At the center of the vast chamber, Ambassador Elias Carter stood on the human-designated platform, his simple black diplomatic suit stark against the riot of alien regalia surrounding him. A Zephyrian delegate floated nearby, his chitinous plates clicking as he adjusted his position. High Speaker Vexilon's 4 glowing eyes fixed on Carter with undisguised amusement. "The Council has reviewed your petition." His voice buzzed through the universal translator. "Earth's request for a defensive alliance against the Vorak hive is denied." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Carter didn't flinch. He'd expected this. "On what grounds?" he asked, his voice calm. Vexilon's mandibles twitched in what the humans had learned was the Zephyrian equivalent of a smirk. "Your species clings to chemical propulsion and projectile weapons," he sneered. "The Vorak hive will consume your world in weeks. Why waste Federation resources?" Laughter echoed through the hall, bioluminescent flashes from the jelly, like Zenthari, deep bellows from the hulking Gorvax delegates, and the high-pitched chittering of the insectoid Krevor. Carter's fingers tightened around the data chip in his pocket, but his face remained impassive. A Cerelian delegate, her translucent skin pulsing with amusement, floated closer. "Your primitive warfare is no match for the Vorak," she said, her voice like wind chimes. "The Federation has no interest in protecting a species that refuses to evolve." Carter's jaw tightened. "We've adapted more than you know." More laughter. A Gorvax ambassador, his massive frame taking up 3 human-sized pods, leaned forward. "Your last great warship was destroyed by a single Vorak scout," he rumbled. "What could you possibly have that would change our minds?" Carter didn't answer immediately. He let the laughter wash over him, let them have their moment. Then, slowly, he reached into his pocket and withdrew the data chip. "This," he said, holding it up. "Our full military assessment, our real capabilities." Vexilon's antennae twitched, more human bravado. "Read it," Carter said, "or don't, the choice is yours." The chamber quieted slightly. A few delegates exchanged glances. The Krevor representative skittered forward, his multi-jointed limbs tapping against the floor. "Why should we waste time?" he hissed. "Your species has nothing to offer but desperation." Carter's gaze didn't waver. "We've been watching the Vorak just as long as you have, longer. Maybe we know how they fight, and we know how to kill them." Vexilon's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Enough, the vote is final. Earth stands alone." The chamber erupted in final, dismissive laughter. Carter didn't move. He simply slid the data chip back into his pocket and turned toward the exit. Behind him, the delegates resumed their discussions, as if humanity had already been erased from the galaxy's future. As he stepped onto the transit platform that would take him back to his ship, a voice called out. One of the younger delegates, a Thalassian, her silver scales shimmering, floated closer. "Ambassador," she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the din. "Is it true? Do your people really have a chance?" Carter met her gaze. "You'll find out soon enough." The transit doors hissed shut behind him, cutting off the noise of the Council's mockery. Alone in the sterile corridor, Carter finally allowed himself a slow, cold smile. They'd made their choice now. Earth would make theirs. The USN Resolve shuddered as it broke orbit, its ion drives flaring blue against the black. Captain Lisa Hayes' fingers danced across the console, adjusting thrust vectors with practiced ease. Behind her, Ambassador Elias Carter stood motionless at the observation port, watching Xanthoprime's glittering spires shrink into the distance. The Council's laughter still echoed in his skull. "Chemical propulsion," he muttered, repeating Vexilon's mocking words. His knuckles whitened around the data chip in his pocket. Hayes glanced back. "Sir, orders?" Carter didn't turn. Set course for Luna, maximum burn. The Resolve's engines roared, slamming them into their seats as the ship punched through the systems. Edge alarms blared, Federation traffic control demanding identification, then threats when they ignored hails. Hayes smirked, silencing the comms with a flick of her wrist. Guess they don't like being ignored. Carter finally turned, his face unreadable. They'll learn. 3 hours into the slipstream jump, the ship's AI chimed, incoming priority transmission, Earth command encryption. Carter moved to the holodisplay. The image of Fleet Admiral Kincaid materialized, his scarred face grim. Elias Council's decision, denied unanimously. Kincaid's jaw tightened. Then it's time. He tapped a command off screen. Operation Iron Dawn is authorized. Authorization code Kappa 79er. Hayes inhaled sharply. Sir, that's our last resort. Carter finished. He input the code sequence into his wrist terminal. The Resolve's mainframe beeped, accepting the encrypted packet. Kincaid leaned closer. The Vorak are already mobilizing. Scouts report bio. Fleets massing near Proxima. How long? 72 hours max. The Admiral's image flickered. The lunar shipyards are live. Tell Morrison, make it count. The transmission died. Hayes exhaled, hands trembling on the controls. They really think we can't fight. Carter stared at the starfield. They think we're still using gunpowder and steel. He activated the ship's archival logs, pulling up footage from the last Federation war games. Human observers barred from the combat simulations. Their ships relegated to mock battles with training rounds. Watch, he said. The playback showed a Zephyrian cruiser effortlessly dodging human missiles, its energy shields flaring. Federation delegates laughed as the primitive projectiles detonated harmlessly. Hayes' fists clenched. They never saw the real weapons. No, Carter shut off the feed, because we let them laugh. The Resolve dropped out of slipspace at the edge of Sol. Lunar craters glowed under Earthlight, but it was the shipyards that stole Hayes' breath. Holy hell. Dozens of skeletal frames stretched across the dark, monstrous hulls in various stages of assembly. Goliath-class dreadnoughts, their blackened armor absorbing the stars. Workers in exosuits swarmed like ants, welding final plates onto a vessel twice the size of a Federation battleship. Hayes' console pinged. We're being hailed, it's the Atlantica. Carter straightened. Patch it through. Admiral Jake Morrison's face filled the screen, his grin sharp. About time, Elias Council, kick you out, politely. Morrison barked a laugh. Good, we're done asking. He turned, barking orders off, screen. Prep the fleet. I want all Goliath's combat. Ready in 6 hours. Hayes blinked. 6 hours, Admiral, even with the automated yards. You'd need weeks. Morrison interrupted. That's what the Federation thinks too. He leaned in. Captain, how long you think we've been building these beauties in secret? She hesitated. Years. Try decades. The Admiral's smile vanished. Every tax dollar, every black site lab, every failed prototype, the Federation spies reported back. Misdirection. He tapped his temple. While they laughed at our primitive tech, we leapfrogged past their shiny shields and energy weapons. Carter crossed his arms, and the Vorak. Morrison's eyes darkened. They'll hit Mars first. Let them. The Resolve docked at Shipyard Alpha. Hayes followed Carter through pressurized tunnels, their boots clanging on steel grates. The scale of the operation stunned her. Thousands of engineers. None in Federation. Standard uniforms, all moving with lethal purpose. A young lieutenant jogged up, saluting. Ambassador, admirals waiting in CIC. They entered a cavernous control room. Holograms of Sol system flickered above the central table, red blips converging on Mars. Morrison stood flanked by generals, his finger stabbing at the display. Let their scouts through. I want the Vorak to see Mars defenses fail. General Cole frowned. Sir, that'll cost lives, and save billions. Carter cut in. All eyes turned to him. The Federation's watching. They need to believe we're losing. Morrison nodded. Exactly then, when their hive mind commits the swarm. He tapped a command. The hologram zoomed out, revealing hidden human battle groups lurking in the asteroid belt. Hayes' pulse spiked. That's over 200 ships. 243, Morrison corrected. All armed with quantum. Kinetics. Shields won't stop a round moving at .99 light speed. Silence. Then Carter smiled. Hayes stood on the Atlantica's observation deck hours later, watching the first Goliaths power up. Their railguns hummed, magnetic coils glowing faintly blue. Morrison joined her, handing her a coffee. First time seeing a fleet built for revenge? She took the mug, staring at the dreadnoughts. Why hide it? We could have joined the Federation and be their pets. Morrison snorted. No, better they underestimate us. He pointed at the closest Goliath, its hull marked with fresh paint. US and vengeance. That's not just a ship, Captain. That's 3 centuries of fragile primates playing dumb. His voice dropped. Now, time to remind the galaxy why humans conquered fire. Hayes sipped her coffee. It tasted like victory. Deep in the Resolve's hold, Carter activated the data chip. Earth Command's seal flashed, followed by a single word in bold Iron Dawn: engaged. He exhaled, watching Luna's shadow swallow the stars. Let them laugh now. The first warning klaxons blared across the Sol defense network as the Vorak swarm emerged from warp. General Marcus Cole's fingers dug into the armrests of his command chair aboard the USN Defiance, as tactical displays lit up with crimson threat markers. Report, he growled, watching the holomap of Mars orbit fill with hostile contacts. 800 confirmed bioships, sir, Lieutenant Chen answered, her voice tight. Scouts are reading organic weapon signatures consistent with Vorak Hive fleet patterns. Cole's jaw clenched. The reports hadn't exaggerated. The Vorak vessels weren't ships, not in any human sense. They were living things, bulbous and pulsating, their surfaces rippling with veins that glowed sickly green. Each one dwarfed even the Federation's largest dreadnoughts. Mars orbital defense platforms are powering up, Commander Ruiz announced. Railgun batteries locked and loaded. Cole nodded. Tell them to fire at will, no mercy. Across the void, the human defenses sprang to life. Automated turrets spun up, their barrels glowing red, hot as they spat tungsten slugs at relativistic speeds. The first volley struck a cluster of Vorak bioships, direct hits. For a heartbeat, Cole allowed himself to hope. Then the bioships healed. Sir, impact confirmed, but minimal damage, Chen shouted. Their hulls are regenerating. A psychic screech tore through the comms, so loud it made the bridge crew clutch their ears. The voice of the Vorak Hive. Mind filled the void, a guttural, wet sound that bypassed translation software entirely. Flesh, worlds will feed the swarm. The bioships returned fire. Tendrils of glowing green plasma erupted from their surfaces, arcing across space like living lightning. They struck Mars colony's orbital platforms, and where they touched, metal melted. The stations crumpled like paper in a furnace. Their crews vaporized before they could scream. Cole watched helplessly as Platform Themis, home to 3,000 personnel, disintegrated in seconds. Fall back, he barked. All defense platforms retreat to secondary positions. But it was too late. The Vorak didn't just attack, they consumed. Smaller biopods detached from the main fleet, latching onto the wreckage of the human stations. Organic tendrils burrowed into the metal, digesting it, absorbing it. Sir, we're getting reports from Mars colony, Ruiz said, his face pale. The Vorak are launching drop pods. They're hitting the surface. Cole switched the feed to the Martian surface. The red sands were burning. Drop pods, living capsules of chitin and muscle, slammed into the ground, splitting open to disgorge Vorak warriors. 12 feet tall, exoskeletons gleaming with acidic slime, they tore through the colony's defenses like they were nothing. Human soldiers fired pulse rifles, but the Vorak didn't stop. Bullets punched holes in their carapaces, only for the wounds to seal shut seconds later. A Marine scream cut through the comms as a Vorak warrior ripped him in half. Cole slammed his fist onto the armrest. Where the hell is the Federation? Fleet signatures detected at the edge of the system, Chen reported. It is the Council's observers. The holodisplay flickered as the Federation ships arrived, gleaming silver vessels, untouched by battle. They hung back, watching a transmission came through. High Speaker Vexlan's face appeared, his 4 eyes gleaming with cold amusement. General Cole, the Superior said, his voice dripping with condescension. The Council offers its condolences. It seems humanity's defenses were not as robust as you claimed. Cole's blood boiled. We didn't ask for your pity. We asked for your help. Vexlan's mandibles twitched in what might have been a smile. Help for a species that still uses bullets. The Vorak will consume your world within days. Perhaps next time you will listen when the Council speaks. The transmission cut off. The bridge was silent. Then Ruiz spoke, his voice shaking with rage. They're just going to watch. Cole didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the holodisplay, where the Vorak swarm advanced unchecked. Mars was falling. Earth was next. But deep in the Sol system, hidden in the shadow of Luna, something stirred. A coded transmission flickered across Cole's private terminal. 3 words, Iron Dawn engaged. Cole allowed himself a grim smile. The Vorak had no idea what was coming. The lunar shipyards had never been busier, hidden beneath the moon's pockmarked surface, shielded from prying Federation sensors. Humanity's true strength had been forged in secret. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USN Atlantica, his reflection staring back at him from the obsidian, black hull of the nearest Goliath-class dreadnought. The ship was a monster, 3 kilometers of reinforced titanium and quantum. Shielded plating, its spine lined with the massive barrels of kinetic railguns that could crack a planet in half. Status report, Morrison barked, his voice cutting through the hum of the bridge. Lieutenant Chen didn't look up from her console. All ships report ready. Admiral, railguns charged, slipstream drives primed. The Defiance and Vanguard are holding position at the edge of the yard. Morrison allowed himself a grim smile. The Federation had laughed when humanity asked for help. They'd called human weapons primitive, their tactics crude. But they hadn't seen this. They hadn't seen what 3 centuries of hidden research and desperation could build. Open fleet, wide comms, he ordered. A chime echoed through every ship in the Armada. Hundreds of vessels from nimble Raptor, class interceptors to the towering dreadnoughts. Every captain, every gunner, every engineer stood ready. Morrison didn't waste words. The Vorak think we're prey. The Federation thinks we're weak. Today, we remind them why that is the last mistake they'll ever make. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Then 2 words, calm and final, light them up. Across the shipyard, engines roared to life. Blue-white flames erupted from thrusters as the human fleet surged forward, slipping into formation with practiced precision. The Atlantica led the charge, its railgun capacitors humming with stored energy. On Mars, the Vorak swarm had already begun their feast. Bioships latched onto the colony's defenses, their tendrils burrowing into metal, dissolving it into organic slurry to feed their endless hunger. The Federation observers, perched safely in high orbit, watched with detached amusement. Then their sensors screamed. Multiple contacts incoming. A Zephyrian technician shrieked, his 4 eyes widening. Slipstream signatures, human signatures. High Speaker Vexlan's chitinous plates rattled in disbelief. Impossible. Their slipstream tech is generations behind. The first railgun round tore through a Vorak bio ship like paper. The USN Defiance had fired from beyond visual range, the tungsten projectile traveling at a fraction of light speed. The bioship, a bloated, pulsating mass of flesh and chitin, exploded in a shower of gore, the shockwave sending nearby swarm vessels spiraling. Then the rest of the fleet arrived. The Atlantica's railguns fired in sequence, each shot precise, each impact catastrophic. Vorak ships ruptured like overripe fruit, their psychic screams echoing across the void. The human ships didn't bother with energy shields or plasma cannons. They didn't need them. Their weapons were simpler, brutal, unstoppable. "Admiral," Chen shouted, "the swarm is reconfiguring. They're trying to envelop the vanguard." Morrison didn't flinch. "Tell Captain Hale to hold position and signal the Raptor squadrons. Time to show the bugs why we don't fly in straight lines." The nimble interceptors shot forward, weaving through the swarm's grasping tendrils. Their railguns were smaller but no less deadly. A Raptor pilot banked hard, lining up a shot on a Vorak nerve cluster. "Eat this ugly," she muttered, and fired. The round punched clean through, detonating somewhere deep inside the bioship. The entire vessel convulsed, then imploded, its flesh collapsing in on itself. On the Atlantica's bridge, Morrison watched the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. The Federation observers were no longer laughing. Their transmissions were frantic, confused. How are they doing this? Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate Vorak bio-armor. Where did these ships come from? Morrison keyed an open channel, his voice cutting across the chaos. "You banned us from your war games," he said, calm as a knife sliding into a sheath. "So we invented new ones." Then the Atlantica's main railgun fired. The round, dubbed Titan's Fist by the engineers who built it, streaked across the battlefield and struck the heart of the Vorak fleet. A bioship, the size of a small moon, vaporized on impact, the shockwave rippling outward, tearing through the swarm like a scythe through wheat. For the first time in recorded history, the Vorak hive mind hesitated. Morrison didn't. "All ships, advance. Full assault pattern, Omega." The human fleet surged forward, a tide of black steel and fire, and the galaxy held its breath. The alarms inside the Galactic Council chambers blared like the screams of dying gods. High-speaker Vexlan's 4 eyes flickered between holographic displays, each one showing the same impossible sight: human warships tearing through the Vorak swarm like a blade through flesh. His chitinous plates rattled with barely contained panic. "Where did they get this technology?" Vexlan roared, slamming a clawed fist onto the crystalline console. The data stream scrolling before him made no sense. Human vessels, sleek, black, and utterly devoid of Federation design, were ignoring energy shielding entirely. Their weapons didn't pulse with plasma or crackle with ionized particles. They fired solid slugs at relativistic speeds, punching through bio-armor with terrifying efficiency. A Zephyrian tactical officer stammered, his mandibles clicking uncontrollably. "High speaker, their propulsion signatures. They're not using slipstream drives. They've developed something else, something faster." On the main display, the USN Defiance, a monstrous dreadnought twice the size of a Federation flagship, plowed straight into the heart of a Vorak hive ship. The organic monstrosity, a writhing mass of tendrils and pulsating sacs, tried to envelop the human vessel. It didn't matter. The Defiance's reinforced prow split the hive, ship open like rotten fruit, its internal reactors detonating in a fireball, so bright it momentarily overloaded the Council's sensors. Vexlan's blood ran cold. Federation doctrine had always dismissed kinetic weapons as primitive. Energy shields could deflect plasma. They could dissipate particle beams, but nothing in the galaxy could stop a tungsten rod moving at a fraction of light speed. A voice crackled over the open comms, deep and dripping with barely restrained fury. Admiral Jake Morrison's face appeared on the central holo display, his scarred features illuminated by the flashing battle. Lights of the US and Atlantica's bridge behind him. Crewmen worked with calm precision, as if this weren't the first real battle humanity had fought in centuries. "You banned us from war games," Morrison said, his voice a low growl. "Called our ships slow, our weapons outdated." On the screens, another Vorak bio ship erupted into flames as a Goliath. Class Dreadnought's railgun round punched clean through its core. "So we invented new ones." The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates from a dozen species shouted over each other, their bioluminescent patterns flashing in distress. A Cerelion observer, its floating orbs wide with shock, whispered, "They hid this for how long?" Vexlan's mind raced. The Federation had monitored Earth for centuries. Their last military assessment had labeled human warships as laughably obsolete. Yet here they were, outmaneuvering, outgunning, and outthinking a Vorak swarm that had devoured entire civilizations. On the tactical display, the human fleet moved with terrifying coordination, ships the Federation had never seen before. Small, agile destroyers with gravity, distortion engines, darted between Vorak formations, their railgun turrets spinning up with mechanical precision. The Atlantica itself hung at the center of the formation, its massive spinal, mounted cannon charging with a hum that vibrated through the councils. Sensors even across light years. Then the unthinkable happened. A Vorak hive, mine's psychic scream ripped through the comms. A sound so primal it made even the hardened Zephyrian warriors flinch. Flee. Flee from the death. Bringers, the swarm, which had never retreated from anything, broke. Bioships that had moments ago been descending upon Earth now twisted in space, their organic thrusters flaring as they tried to escape. It didn't matter. Human destroyers, faster than anything the Federation had ever recorded, cut off their retreat. Morrison's voice came again, calm and final. "You wanted to see what humanity could do when pushed to the brink." On the screen, the Atlantica's main cannon finished charging. The weapon's designation flashed briefly across the feed, Titan's Fist. "Now you know," the cannon fired. The round, a hyper-dense projectile wrapped in gravitational containment fields, crossed the distance to the largest remaining Vorak hive. Ship in less than a second. The impact didn't just destroy the ship, it unmade it. The hive ship's twisted biology vaporized in a shockwave of pure kinetic force, the blast rippling outward and tearing apart every Vorak vessel within 100 kilometers. Silence fell over the council chamber. The holographic displays flickered, struggling to process the sheer scale of destruction. Vexlan's voice, when he finally spoke, was hollow. They were never weak. A human voice, young and fierce, answered from the comms. Captain Lisa Hayes, her face streaked with sweat, but her eyes burning with triumph, grinned. "No, we were just waiting for you to notice." On the screens, the remnants of the Vorak swarm fled into the void, pursued by the relentless black hulls of Earth's revenge fleet. The Federation's observers, once so smug, now stood frozen in horror. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Vorak hive, mine's last stronghold, pulsed like a cancerous heart in the void. What had once been a thriving planetoid, now writhed with organic tendrils, its surface a grotesque tapestry of biomass and screaming nerve clusters. The USN Atlantica hung in space before it, its blackened hull streaked with the scars of battle, its quantum kinetic railgun humming with barely contained fury. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. The crew around him worked in silence, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow of the hive. Mine's core, it pulsed faster now, as if sensing its impending doom. "Admiral," Lieutenant Chen called from the tactical station, "the Defiance reports all remaining Vorak bio ships have been neutralized. The fleet is standing by." Morrison nodded. "Good. Open a channel to the hive mind." A burst of static filled the bridge before the voice of the Vorak mind screeched into existence, a sound like 1,000 dying creatures wailing in unison. "Primitives, you dare stand before the swarm." Morrison didn't flinch. "We do more than stand," he said, his voice calm. "We end this." The hive, mine's laughter, was a physical force, vibrating through the ship's hull. "Your puny weapons cannot touch us." The Federation's energy shields failed. Their plasma cannons failed. What can your barbaric projectiles do? On the view screen, the Atlantica's railgun finished charging. The weapon was a monstrosity of human engineering. A kilometer-long barrel lined with superconducting coils, its payload a single tungsten round the size of a skyscraper, wrapped in quantum destabilization fields. Morrison turned to his weapons officer. Fire. The Atlantica shuddered as the railgun discharged. Space itself seemed to warp as the projectile streaked toward the hive. Mind's core, the Vorak's psychic scream reached a crescendo, a final desperate denial. No, impossible. Primitives cannot. The round struck. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then the hive mind's planetoid flexed. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, glowing with the furious light of ruptured biomass. The core imploded, collapsing inward before detonating in a shockwave of pure annihilation. The blast rippled outward, vaporizing the last remnants of the Vorak fleet. The light so intense it blinded sensors across the system. On the bridge of the Atlantica, the crew shielded their eyes as the view screen auto dimmed when the light faded. There was nothing left. No debris, no wreckage, just empty space where the hive mind had been. Morrison exhaled slowly. Send a fleet-wide broadcast. The Vorak swarm is dead. A cheer erupted across the comms, human voices mingling with the crackle of static. But Morrison's gaze was already turning toward Zentha Prime, where the Galactic Council's sensors would be registering what had just happened. Lieutenant Chen swallowed hard. Admiral, the Federation is hailing us. Morrison allowed himself a small, cold smile. Let them wait. Across the system, the human fleet regrouped. The USN Defiance, its prow blackened from ramming the Vorak hive ship, fell into formation beside the Atlantica. The USN Resolve, Ambassador Carter's diplomatic vessel, slipped out of warp at the edge of the battlefield, its engines flaring as it adjusted course. On the bridge of the Resolve, Elias Carter watched the aftermath unfold on his screen. The data chip in his pocket felt heavier than ever. "Sir," his aide murmured, "the Council is demanding an explanation." Carter didn't look away from the view screen. They'll get one. Behind him, the stars burned cold and silent. The Vorak were gone, but humanity's reckoning with the Galactic Federation had only just begun. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council had never known silence like this. The crystalline spires still reflected the light of 3 suns, but now they trembled with the distant hum of human engines. Ambassador Elias Carter stood at the center of the chamber, his black diplomatic suit stark against the sea of alien regalia. The anti-grav pods that once floated with arrogant ease now hung motionless, their occupants frozen in disbelief. High-speaker Vexlan's chitinous plates clicked together in agitation, his 4 glowing eyes darting between the holographic displays. The feeds showed the remnants of the Vorak hive, Mind's fleet, shattered planetoids drifting in the void, their organic husks still burning from human railgun fire. The USN Atlantica loomed in orbit, its black hull scarred but unbroken, its quantum kinetic batteries humming with restrained power. Carter let the silence stretch. Then, with deliberate slowness, he reached into his pocket and dropped the data chip onto the floor. It activated with a soft chime, projecting Earth's war logs in a sprawling hologram. 3 centuries of hidden research and development unfolded before the Council's eyes. Underground shipyards on Luna, secret testing grounds in the asteroid belt, engineers working through the night while the galaxy laughed. "You banned us from your war games," Carter said, his voice calm but edged with steel. "So we played our own, a Zephyrian delegate, one who had sneered at humanity's primitive weapons, shrank back as the logs displayed the first test of the Goliath-class dreadnoughts. Entire mountains had been vaporized in a single shot. Vexlan's mandibles twitched. This is impossible. Your species lacked the resources, the technology. We lacked your arrogance," Carter interrupted. "While you dismissed us, we adapted. While you mocked us, we built. And while you left us to die, we prepared." The hologram shifted, showing the final moments of the Vorak hive. Mind, the Atlantica's railgun, the Titan's fist, charging to full power. The planetoid cracking apart like glass, the psychic scream of 1 billion Vorak minds snuffed out in an instant. A Cerelian observer, its floating orbs wide with shock, whispered, "You were supposed to be weak." Carter's smile was cold. "We let you think that." The chamber erupted in panicked chatter. Delegates from a dozen species scrambled to access their comms, their bioluminescent patterns flashing in distress. The Federation's military advisors, those who had assured the Council that human kinetics were obsolete, now stared at the feeds in horror. The USN Defiance, its prow still smoldering from ramming a hive ship, drifted into view on the hologram. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the central display, his features hardened by battle. "Council members," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You have a choice." The room fell silent again. "You can continue to underestimate us," Morrison continued, "or you can recognize that humanity won this war, alone. The Vorak are gone. The swarm is broken. And Earth's fleet," he glanced off. Screen, where the Atlantica's weapons systems glowed ominously, were still here. Vexlan's forelimbs trembled. For the first time in his long political career, the High Speaker had no words. It was a Thalassian diplomat, a species known for their mercantile cunning, who broke the silence. "Ambassador Carter," it said, its voice smooth but urgent. The Galactic Federation would be honored to discuss a new alliance. Carter didn't move. He let the weight of the moment settle, let the Council feel the shift in power. Outside, the human fleet held position, their engines idling but ready. The Defiance, the Atlantica, and 100 other ships, each one built in secret, each one a testament to human defiance. Finally, Carter nodded. "Now we negotiate." The chamber's doors slid open, revealing a squad of human Marines in sleek, black combat armor. Their rifles weren't the crude projectile weapons the Federation expected. They were something worse, something new. As Carter stepped forward, the delegates recoiled. Not in fear. In respect, the age of human weakness was over. The age of human dominance had begun.